And then I did leave those slides in if you want to kind of start out the way you did for the one on Wednesday.
Oh, okay. Well, you need to. Okay, so yes, my spiel.
Yeah.
I'm saying in all of these that normally we go out on the road. We, myself and Guthrie Capicella from the Indian Ed office, and Jane Harsted, and this year Kat Taminga from Early Childhood was going to go with us. But since we aren't going out to in-person meetings, we are doing this series of webinars. And this slide, so this is a continuation of April 21. We ran out of time and there was so much information to share. So, and I think it's the next slide, the instructions about, so there, yeah, there's my contact info. And
Yeah.
yes, about muting and so forth. And the participants, it's great if you put an introduction of who you are in the chat. And if you are signed in with, say, only your first name or a phone number or an alias, or you're signed in under someone else's email account, please put your own name in the chat so we can get a certificate of participation out to you in the correct name. And so I'll keep monitoring the chat here for you.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Yes, definitely. So I think we have it set up that you can either choose everyone to put comments in, or you can specifically email one person. So please try to either use the everyone button or email Elizabeth directly or chat to Elizabeth directly. It's really important today, as you are thinking of things, just a stream of consciousness, put things into the chat box. There's really two purposes today. One is to get to explain to you about Help Me Connect that we didn't have time for on Wednesday, but more importantly, to get your feedback on Help Me Connect and on helping us get ready for our launch coming up soon. So any ideas, any thoughts you have, please make sure you're putting those into the chat box today. We will be recording that so I can look back after the fact to be able to gather your input. So, and good morning again, everyone. It's so good to see you. Thank you to those of you who have come back again for our little pop-up webinar for Help Me Connect information today, as well as it sounds like some new people have been able to join today. Thanks for being with us on a beautiful Friday. I hope it's sunny wherever you are. It is here in South Minneapolis where I live. I wanted to start with this slide again like we did on Wednesday to really ground us together as a learning community today. We talked on Wednesday about prioritizing equity and making sure that we think about equity instead of just equality, knowing that equality is giving everyone the same thing, but equity is giving individuals what they need and what they know they need to succeed. So really focusing on equity today from that perspective. Also, the starting from within and going local, just wanting to really focus on, I'm going to be sharing with you today how the tribal communities have been involved in the development of Help Me Connect so far, and why it's important to continue having voices directly involved in the development of Help Me Connect moving forward. Starting early, of course, I'm birth to 3. I probably should repeat that since I didn't really introduce myself again. Kat Taminga from MDE, birth to 3 services. Starting early is critical. The earlier we can start, the better for both children and for families to have stronger families and stronger children and a stronger world. Valuing people, so important to think about valuing people for who they are, not making assumptions, not making choices for other people, but really allowing people to share what's important to them and what is meaningful for them. And then giving students options. And here, even though students, of course, does mean students, today I want you to be thinking about students in terms of families. Giving families options. Help Me Connect is all about helping connect individual families to what they feel are the options that they need to be strong and successful. So thinking about giving families options today. So what's in a name? I put this slide in really because there's been a little bit of confusion around what Help Me Connect is, and is it the same as Help Me Grow? Help Me Connect is new for some people, But for those of you who have maybe been involved in the process of development of Help Me Connect from the beginning, we used to call it Expanded Help Me Grow. It was really built on the foundation of the current Help Me Grow system that we learned about on Wednesday for early childhood special education. And we were taking that system that's already working really well to connect families to that particular resource and expanding it to all families statewide in Minnesota. So just wanted to let you know, for those of you who are more familiar with that term, Expanded Help Me Grow, we have renamed it Help Me Connect to really streamline and show the purpose of Help Me Connect. It's a little different than Help Me Grow. It's literally to help connect families to what they need. Help Me Connect is not the same as Help Me Grow that we talked about on Wednesday. I wanted to clarify that too. They are two separate resources that work in parallel together. That's what this bottom graphic is about. They're working side by side in order to support not only children and families who need early childhood special education, but all families for whatever resources that they need. So they will both be functioning fully. So this is, I showed this briefly on Wednesday at the end. This is the current homepage for Help Me Connect. I'm not able to get onto the website with you today, which is, I know, a little bit hard, but it's because of the stage that we're in with the build out. There are already some parts on this homepage that will be a little bit different, but I wanted you to be able to see what it looks like in general. These different categories, which we're going to talk specifically about our tribal and American Indian families today. But just to get a chance to see what are some of the other topics that we have specifically for connections. To get to see the colors, and this logo up here was really purposefully built to be similar to Help Me Grow's logo, so that there is that connection that we've talked about. And just a chance to get to see what it looks like when you're going to open up the page coming soon. So let's talk a little bit about the history and the development of Help Me Connect. And Elizabeth, feel free, if there are questions, this is an interactive day for sure, so feel free to stop me at any time. Are there any so far? Oh, you're on mute, I think.
So people have been introducing themselves.
Great.
I want to reiterate that your overall purpose today is to get input for the outreach to tribal families, and so you really do want comments or suggestions as we go along here.
Yes, please. Keep anything you're thinking of, put it in the chat box, please. Thank you. Okay, so let's go back into just a little bit of the history of Help Me Connect. So it's important to know that Help Me Connect is an interagency collaboration between the Departments of Education, Health, and Human Services. And it's been that way from the beginning. In addition to the Governor Children's Cabinet has also been a partner from the start. And the reason it's important to know that is that everyone across the state at the state level is on board with this and recognizes that we really need to have a resource like this that can help make families stronger and help providers in their work with families. I also wanted to make sure that you were aware that we have had tribal partners from the start. It's another very core component to Help Me Connect, that we were sure that we were finding a way to support our tribal communities. That's involved state agency, tribal liaisons, MNTRAC, tribal health directors, the Minnesota Council on Indian Affairs, family home visiting staff, and other providers who work in homes with families, and then community outreach, which is part of what you are today here, to be able to give feedback as through community outreach. There are some additional partners that are helping us actually create the website itself, and I wanted to point them out. Creation in Common is a company that we contracted with to do the community outreach testing. They did two different tests for us, one about 1.5 years ago, and then one just this past winter. And I'll go into a little bit more detail about that in a future slide. But they have really helped us pull together all of the feedback and streamline it in a way that's allowing us to make sure that we're implementing that all before we launch the website. The Minnesota Board on Aging, the Senior Linkage Line, or minnesotahelp.info, is kind of an interesting partner. Typically, you wouldn't think that aging and early childhood connect, but of course they do. We know that we look at life from birth all the way through and past death. And so it's been really neat to work with that part of our state system to help develop Help Me Connect. One reason that we partner with them is that minnesotahelp.info, for those of you who know that resource, and there is a hyperlink here to be able to get to the website. They have this massive database that they use to build their own successful site, and they were willing to share that with us so that we didn't have to start from scratch in building the database for Help Me Connect. It saved us probably years of time. The Metro Area Agency on Aging, these are the people that I kind of call them my data brain people. They're the ones who are actually building the database for us. And then Revation is the current company that's building the website physically, making sure the colors are right, making sure it's accessible, making sure whatever we tell them to do to build out the site is happening. And then we will be moving forward after the launch this fall. We'll be moving into having Minute take over this piece. And the thought behind that is really to help with sustainability of the website, to have that housed internally. I also wanted to point out the Preschool Development Grant. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in a minute. I don't know how many of you are aware of the Preschool Development Grant. I did put the hyperlink in the PowerPoint for you, so you're able to get in and really look through this information. The Preschool Development Grant, we were one of 23 states. It was a very competitive grant who were awarded 3 years of funding in order to really look at state systems and how we can align them better and more efficiently and more effectively for families. And that involves a lot of different pieces. But Help Me Connect is now a partner of the Preschool Development Grant work. And I'll talk about that connection in just a minute. So what's the main purpose of Help Me Connect? And you should have gotten, let me pull this up a minute. If I can, whoops. Let me go, sorry. Trying to remember how to do this all. You would have gotten this as a PDF in your handouts. This is our one pager, just to explain a little bit about Help Me Connect as it currently is. So we'll be coming back to this, but the main point of Help Me Connect is at the top of this one pager. So let me go back to the slideshow. Oops, sorry. You'd think I'd have this all down by now. Okay, there we go. So the main purpose of Help Me Connect is to have an online navigator designed to help providers connect pregnant individuals and families with young children, so birth up through age 8, with services available in their communities. And it's really important to note that we decided to build the website with providers in mind. And there were some strategic reasons behind that versus having it just sort of be this open website for anyone to use. One of them is that many early childhood providers actually have roles to be service coordinators or case managers and to help find resources for families. And we wanted to have an effective way for providers to do that. But we also know through a lot of our community feedback that families discussed and talked about how they need help navigating the state systems. While we have a lot of resources for families, sometimes at the state level, we don't make them the easiest to access. And so Help Me Connect was built with that in mind as well, for providers to really help families connect with what they need. Providers will be able to make referrals through Help Me Connect and receive follow-up information, just knowing that that referral did go through and is moving forward with the places that families are connected to. So let's talk a little bit about the history. Elizabeth, I should stop and check. Are there any questions so far?
Here's a comment. I'd like to include an early childhood goal and activities into next year's Indian education program plan. I'm looking for a good goal to begin the process of an ongoing connection between our district's Indian education program and early childhood.
That makes me so happy. Please make sure that whoever put that comment, that your information is in the box so we can connect.
It's someone I know, so we can follow up on that.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. So we'll talk a little bit about the history right now. So I put a link in here of a place called National Help Me Grow, and I would once again recommend getting in and going through and taking a look at this. In Minnesota, as you learned on Wednesday, our early childhood special education system is called Help Me Grow, but there is actually a national model. It's housed out of Connecticut, the University of Connecticut, that is similar to what we're doing with Help Me Connect, in that there are some states who participate in the National Help Me Grow that have regional centers where they are doing these sorts of connections that we're building through Help Me Connect. Minnesota is the only state right now that is launching it statewide, which is pretty exciting. And so while there are elements of this national model within what we're building, we are, of course, in Minnesota, we love to do things the way that we do them. So a little bit differently than everybody else. So we are expanding it past the national model, but they were big part of implementing the beginning piece of building Help Me Connect. So in 2012, so this has been around since 2012, we had a statewide summit, and the National Help Me Grow people came and shared with us how they had built their system as a place for us to start. And we had this summit with a variety of early childhood partners, state staff, tribal liaisons right from the beginning, healthcare and education providers right from the beginning, people who were out there working with families to really talk about, is this something we wanted to do? How would we be able to do it? Knowing that there was a need to expand things past just early childhood special education. In 2014 and 2015, we pulled work groups together to really talk about core components of centralized access. How could we make a statewide system similar to Help Me Grow, but expand it to a much larger piece and make that be easy to access for families? We wanted to make sure that it included education, but also human services and health. And then what kind of a data component do we need to have to Help Me Connect? One example of the data that we're going to be having through Help Me Connect is really being able to track when you get into Help Me Connect and you can't find something you're looking for. Does that need to be added? And Help Me Connect is not going to automatically create resources in places that those resources don't exist, but it's going to help us have the data to know where those gaps are so that as a state system, we're able to really build out resources for families in a more effective and efficient way. Also in 2014 and 15, we held 2 tribal summits in order to really gain direct information from tribal and American Indian communities about what needed to be in Help Me Connect specific for families, to ensure that we had resources that really were needed, not what everyone else thought that tribal communities need, but what tribal communities are asking for. And so that's another reason I'm here, is we're going to take a look at that section today, and I'm going to ask you directly for your feedback about how did we do and what still needs to be added before launch. In 2016 and 2017, things were a little bit quiet. We had a hard time getting funding during this time. We had tried a few different attempts to get legislative funding that did not go through. We tried to get some federal grant funding that didn't happen. And so really we sort of buckled down and put in a lot of human power and what funding we were able to get through the agencies, and plugged along with really taking the time to work on the plan. What would be happening moving forward once we were able to obtain funding? And in 2018 and 19, this is when we started that partnership with the Board on Aging to start building the Navigator. We developed that Navigator site and we did 2 rounds of testing, which I'll talk a little bit more about too. And then these last 2 sections, I'm going to go into much more in depth in the next few slides. This whole history is on that 1-pager along the side for you to be able to go back through again later. Oh, I should say on these 2 slides, I couldn't get these to hyperlink, but the top hyperlink does work. So one of the community testings we did was this past winter, December and January. And at the same time is when the state received the preschool development grant that I was talking about earlier. I put in here, I'm not going to go into the what we call the PDG for short in much detail today. That actually, I was thinking, Elizabeth, that might be a really good, an additional pop-up webinar for everyone to do, is to have the person who is the PDG manager come and talk to you and explain a little bit more about this. It really will be reaching every facet of early childhood and resources for families across the state in Minnesota. But I wanted to let you know that when I was talking about how we'd had a hard time getting funding for Help Me Connect, we are now a part of the preschool development grant because our missions really line up so closely together in helping to support families in more effective ways. So we are very grateful to be a part of the funding for the next 3 years in order to move forward some pieces of Help Me Connect that we would otherwise have not been able to do right now and would have had to have been on hold. Help Me Connect really is part of this first goal here, making it easier for families to get what they need. So I encourage you, definitely, this is a hyperlink to this document in a little bit more depth. It's just a nice graphic to give you very direct information in an easy format about what PDG is and how Help Me Connect is a piece of that. So when you get a chance, go back and take a look at that. And then I also encourage you once again to go to that link on the first slide where I talked about the partners to be able to look a little bit more into the PDG. So what's happening right now? Oh, I see Elizabeth waving. Yay.
Well, this is a question for me. So a couple slides back, you talked about getting input from tribal liaisons. Who do you mean by that? Are you thinking like tribal Head Start programs or people from tribal schools, or like most of the participants today are with public schools that are on or near reservations? So I just wonder if you could clarify a little.
Yeah, you bet. So there's sort of two answers to that. One answer is input from everyone and anyone who is willing to give us input and willing to participate and be a part of this. I think early on it was more tribal leadership. And that was before my time of being on the team. But my understanding is that it was really starting out with leadership and starting with the voice, and then asking them to help us connect with other people who needed to be involved. So does that answer?
Yep.
Cool. Okay, good. Anything else in the chat box?
Let me just look. There is, here's a comment from Colina Bibo. Leech Lake has an excellent maternal health program and family spirit that she's part of with her baby. So
great.
The tribe, I think that's, so that would be a tribal program.
Good. Yes, yep. Any of those ideas as we're going along that you are thinking of for direct resources, please be sure to put in the chat box. Some of those already will be resources that we have in Help Me Connect, but we want to make sure we're not missing anything. So any of those, please add in the chat box. Thank you. So right now what we are doing is through PDG, of course, being able to have access to that funding, we are hiring a Help Me Connect coordinator. It's a full-time position and that will be hired through MDH. Right now the state's on a hiring freeze, of course, understandably due to COVID-19. But as soon as that lifts, we will be moving forward again. Oh, Elizabeth, I see you waving. That's a good strategy.
MDH?
Yes, the Help Me Connect coordinator actually will be through MDH.
What is MDH?
Oh, good. Yes. Minnesota Department of Health. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I will try to make sure I don't miss acronyms. Thank you. Yes, the Help Me Connect coordinator position will be through the Department of Health. And then through PDG, the Department of Education, Department of Health, and Department of Human Services all have different pieces to the puzzle of roles that they will be filling. And so keep an eye on their websites for other positions. We did just recently, we were able to hire a tribal consultant, and that's been through the Department of Education. And that person will be starting next week or the week after, I think.
Wow.
And we're thrilled. I don't know who it is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I was
although
about to ask, who is it?
yeah, I'm sure it's been announced, but I do not know. I just know that we were able to get that through right before the freeze happened, which we're really excited about. That position will help with primarily all of the PDG work. And then we will also be able to have that person represent and support the work of Help Me Connect. So we're
Oh,
really excited about that. I can let you know.
yeah,
I'll let you know.
we'll definitely want to connect with that person. So,
Yeah, yeah, that's good. Remind me and I'll connect you. In addition, we are, like I was saying, we're really boots on the ground right now, pulling all of that community feedback together in order to make final changes and additions to the website. We're developing marketing around Help Me Connect. The one pager that you got is our very first marketing. We're so excited that we will be developing more. And we're also developing some trainings for the navigator. One thing to know is that the navigator won't function exactly like Google, even though all of us think like Google when we search. The reason for that simply is that no one is like Google. No one has their money and their staff to be able to make things function that way. So we are going to be providing trainings, both live trainings and little mini trainings on the website about how to use it most effectively for searching what you're looking for. So for example, if you type in something and it pops up a zero search, some ideas will pop up about how to search a little differently to make sure that you are able to find what you're looking for. We are hoping to release early fall. We were really looking towards the end of summer until COVID hit, and now it will be early fall that we are launching the Navigator. So how it will launch is that you will immediately be able to get in and start searching for resources. You'll actually be able to type in a family's address or a city or a location in order to find whatever resource you're looking for as close as possible to where that family lives and spends their time. You'll also be able to create a favorites list for a family. So if a family has 20 different things they're looking for, you'll be able to populate that all on one list that you're able to save as a PDF. You're able to email it, you're able to print it, send it to their mobile phone. So there will be ways that you're able to give that information directly to them. We'll be continuing to build out the website ongoing forever. No website is ever perfect. And so we know that there will be things missing that we'll need to add. And we're building into the site itself ways for you to give us that feedback in the moment for those things that you find that are missing that still need to be added after we launch. And then just wanted to let you know, everything we're doing, every decision we're making around Help Me Connect is to ensure that it's sustainable. As you saw, it started many years ago, and we know it needs to continue. PDG is 3 years. What happens after that? And so we're making sure we're building it sustainably. And then we're building it accessibly, making sure that every person is able to access the website and use it effectively. So that's phase 1. So that's kind of bringing us to where we are now through launch in the fall. Now, thankfully, because of PDG, we're able to launch right into our phase 2 as well. And we're super excited. So phase 2 is going to involve building a referral form. So for those of you who are on the call Wednesday, you got to see a little bit of the Help Me Grow referral form. And it's very basic information that you fill out and you hit submit and it goes off to where it needs to go off to. This will, in theory, we're really hoping work very similarly. Very basic information that you'll fill out from the family. You'll be able to hit submit and send that referral in theory to more than one place at a time so that it's very efficient and effective to get families connected in the moment. We didn't have the funding to build it for this first launch in the fall. So we're really excited to be able to build that out for what we're calling phase 2. In addition to building that referral form, through the Department of Human Services, there will be community hubs that are not created because they're actually trying to make sure that they are community organizations already in place that are there supporting families in order to provide a way for families who don't have a case manager or don't have a service coordinator to have someone actually walk them through the process. And the hubs will be helping us test that referral form so that we're sure that it works the way it needs to. We don't want to launch something and have it not work. So the hubs will help us test both how to make that referral, but then we also want to make sure that the referral isn't going into nothing, that on the other end, those places that are getting the referrals know what to do with them. So we'll be providing testing both through the hubs and through Help Me Connect to ensure that every single part of that referral process happens. And then once it's ready, we'll be launching that. So we don't have a date for that. It'll be some time, but we are already making work on getting that going. So as part of phase 2, that's all part of it, as well as creating automatic feedback built into the system so you can continue giving us input on how it's working when you get in and start using it. Continued community outreach, getting feedback to make sure that we're adding things that are helpful, and then continued tribal support and feedback moving forward, which is partly why you're here today. I think I talked about the training piece. Yes, I talked about this piece. And then making sure we're sustainable and accessible moving forward. So just showing you, this is the one pager that I talked about earlier. We already have talked about this history along the left side under Navigator Development. Under the red, these are the different categories and the icons that we're using on the website for helping people know where to go when they get in for information. The part I really want to talk about right now is supporting tribal communities. This piece right here on that one pager. Tribal partners recommended a separate section for tribal services. And so we have that, and I want to share that with you today. We know that tribal nations are sovereign and self-governing with distinct assets and needs, that tribal members it's important for them to have access to unique services that are tribal services. And we know that tribal organizations offer culturally relevant services for families. So we wanted to make sure that we had what the tribal community was asking for and needed. So I wanted to point out just a few ways that we have been involving tribal communities throughout the development of Help Me Connect. First of all, well, let me check, Elizabeth, are there any questions so far?
So there was one question sent to me, and perhaps other people can chime in on this. I mean, it was sent to me privately. It wasn't posted to everyone. Do you think there will be any hesitancy or mistrust from communities to being listed in yet another government database? Mm-hmm. I don't know, does anyone have a comment?
That's actually something I really want to hear from everyone about. If you have any thoughts on that, please either unmute or type into the chat box. That's a concern.
Unmute themselves, or do you need to unmute them?
Oh, I'm not sure. Is Emily still on the call? I'm not sure how we set that up this time.
We can unmute our.
I think you can unmute all, or I can unmute all. Do you want me to do that?
How about if we try having, maybe I can see Sandra's face. Sandra, will you try unmuting yourself and see if that will work?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yep. We
Okay.
can. Good. Thank
Yeah.
you. Let's oh, go ahead.
I think that's just an excellent question because in certain areas of the state, I believe people are more hesitant either because of their isolation or just because they may have had a bad experience with child protection or something like that. So I think that every bit of outreach must be as positive and supportive. One of the things that has always concerned me since I came here 15 years ago when I retired is that there seems to be more emphasis on what a child cannot do in some of the information that's put out than the whole uplift of we want to support your youngster so that they can, succeed. And that was our bent always. And so it really has been disappointing to see that it's been a more, let's look for what's wrong rather than uplift families. Just sorry for my little editorial there.
That's very helpful. Thank you, Sandra. And I think that's important as we're looking at this. The work today of Help Me Connect is ensuring that that's possible through this resource. Thank you for that feedback.
Jamie Barton posted a comment in the chat. Jamie, do you want to unmute
Yep.
yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Yeah, I just wanted to say I think it's also how we present this new initiative, and maybe even that wasn't the correct wording, right? Like, if it's just another to do, it's kind of like, oh, here we go. But if it's presented in a way with people who have built those relationships, I feel like the response will be much better. So if anyone agrees, disagree, like that's just kind of my 2 cents.
Thanks, Jamie. That is one reason, another one of the reasons why we decided to have this built for providers who are working in those trusting relationships with families, hopefully. Thank you for that feedback. I think that's critical. Anybody else have some thoughts or ideas around that? I know that that data is it's definitely a very scary place sometimes. And as of right now, we're not planning to gather specific child or family data. It's more data around how the site is being used. But I do know that that needs to be a part of this conversation. So yeah, any other ideas or thoughts?
Well, I was thinking when you were talking about phase 2, the new referral form, and what you actually said, I think, is that you talked about parents who don't have a case manager. So for me, that was code of, okay, these are not families they don't have a child with special needs, so they aren't getting special ed services, and they they don't have a social worker assigned to them, or they're tried, or they're not dealing with child protection or like that. So just to be really clear, like if Jamie, for example, since she's just started, if she's sitting down with the family and talking with them and saying, well, here's a childcare resource, or here's a preschool resource, I can make a referral to make sure she's not referring them to anything official or scary or dangerous. It's not, you're not putting the family in the system.
Right. That's a really good point. That's important messaging, I think, for us to remember when we're creating the trainings and the information, some of that marketing. Thank you.
Because even that word referral, I think, can be a little scary.
Yeah.
I mean, it has a lot of different meanings.
Yeah. Are there other words out there that people would suggest we use instead of the word referral, especially with our with tribal communities?
I just unmuted myself, but I wasn't intending to talk about referral in the word referral.
That's okay. Go for it, Govinda.
Talk about the idea of collecting data and research, and like already there's a lot of trigger words even beyond referral that we have, that we start going, oh, like, what do they want from us? Or like, how are you going to use that? There's a whole movement behind like decolonizing research, because as Indigenous people, we're probably one of the most researched people, worldwide, like in terms of researching our demise mainly, that we were not meant to exist in this day and age. And so always when those topics come up, it's really important that people understand what you're using that information for, and that it's not ever going to be used against our people. Yeah. And it has to be emphasized, I feel like. And the more that, and it's not enough, I think, at times to have a liaison involved in the process, because like we have some history even with Indian scouts and that kind of stuff, where our own people get used against us. So it's important that those positions are really not tokenized. Oh, I got all sorts of beeping, but they're really not tokenized in any way, that whatever is done, it has to be done in a way that either helps our communities and serves our families. And that has to be the emphasis in that process, because anything else any other purpose is going to trigger all sorts of stuff for us, I think.
What are some ideas, Govinda, kind of going farther with the last part, especially that you were talking about like, we're liaisons, while that's great, it's not the only way to be doing this. What are some other ideas? Is doing things like today, where having all of you who are working directly with families give us your voices enough? How can we connect with families in a way that builds trust? All those sorts of questions, ideas.
I think we should go to the group for that, but I think it is multifaceted in
Yeah.
terms of how that happens, and it's an ongoing thing. You're going to run into these things that we carry with us regardless, even when you have good intention. But it has to be continuous good intention, I feel like. But what are other ideas?
Thank you so much, Govinda, for sharing.
Well, I would say Mindy from Anoka Hennepin put something. Do you want to unmute yourself? She put something in the chat box, and I don't know that it's like falling right up on Govinda, but
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was just saying that a lot of my working with my parents as an Indian education advisor and being the person who often connects them with people who work in the schools, I have a lot of parents that get triggered by the word referral, or even the fact that like our social workers in the schools are so great at connecting our families with all of these community resources, or getting them food or getting them different things. And I have avoided using the word social worker because parents shut down. So I often just say something like, is it okay if I connect you with Kristen Patton? She's really good at connecting our families with people from the county who can help you with your housing, with that can connect you with our Hope office, who can help you like pay these bills and that kind of thing, like saying specifically like what this person is able to do. And sometimes I've even had parents who have emailed me and been like, oh, my name got referred to the social worker. Like, why did that happen? Why is this social worker contacting me? And I'll explain like, oh, like her title is social worker, but she doesn't work with the county. She just works for the school, like being able to explain those things. So I try not to use the word referral. I try to have upfront conversations with, I'm not the best person to get you X, Y, and Z, but here is someone that I partner with who can help you do that.
Do you, either you or anyone else who wants to add, would there be, I know that we wanted to make sure that we had specific tribal resources in Help Me Connect, but should we look at doing a different referral process for our American Indian families? Or do you feel that it's more around helping families understand and feel comfortable and really being transparent about what that means?
say, Koya, do you want to unmute yourself? You've made a couple points.
Hello, thank you. I know words are very important, and I think everyone is aware of that. And using positive, engaging words, resource connections. I know how I would feel if certain things were said to me, and how I interpret them. So just saying resource connections. Use something in a positive manner, and I think everyone is indicating that as we talk about the trigger points and the words that we don't want to use. So, but my thing in everything that I do is just use consistent application. Whatever you do with your program, make sure it's consistent with everything that's connected with this. That's just, I guess, my two main points is consistency and resources, and sharing the information and how we promulgate that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I should say too, I am the main contact on Help Me Connect right now for our tribal communities and American Indian families and input. So my info is on the last slide. Contact me directly with all of your ideas and thoughts too if we don't get to them all today. And I admittedly am learning so much. I'm new to Minnesota. I'm new to our tribal nations here. I am new to this work in general and as a whole. So teach me, please help me learn and understand. Thank you for your comments today.
Well, I think when the new tribal partner, I forget what, the person who's coming next week,
Yeah.
will be really helpful too.
Yeah. At this point in time, that person can't be full-time for us with Help Me Connect, which we're really sad about, but they're going to be doing many things. And knowing that ideally, the person who is this role that I'm doing would be someone who is tribal. So that is something that I am very aware of and am not sure what to do about, and also welcome feedback on. Govinda, it looks like maybe you were going to say something. Were you pausing to see?
I wasn't. I really appreciated the comments. One thing is you had asked right before Koya's comment, and I think she kind of referred to that too, was whether or not that language should be different for other communities compared to our community. And I think that consistency should be throughout the entire site, because identity can be a tricky thing, and people may end up on not clicking on the tribal site or see something. And I think the other part of it is, I'm not sure that it's, although we have a unique experience, I'm not sure that it's just us that get triggered that way. I think there's many more other groups of people that have similar kind of triggers.
Yeah.
And so looking at that from that lens.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I really do love that idea. I don't think anyone who's been involved in this work so far, at least hasn't vocalized the idea of just thinking about calling it something different than a referral form, just even that in and of itself, site-wide, using a different term. So that's very eye-opening for me today. Thank you. Yeah. Any other comments for now?
I have one. What about like on a 4x11 piece of cardstock that you can have your advertisements in places that the parents can just take this card and go home, do the search themselves. I got one through our Fond du Lac Health Services for therapists and stuff, and I passed out bazillions of those already.
Great. That's such a good idea. We have, yesterday or on Wednesday, I forget what day it is.
It was Tuesday. It was Tuesday.
Oh, it was Tuesday.
It was Tuesday.
All the days are running together right now. On Tuesday, I had showed you just a couple of quick pieces of like marketing materials for Help Me Grow. And those are also ideas we need around Help Me Connect. We haven't started creating those yet. And so that is a great idea right there. And any other ideas you have around marketing. And how to do it and where to put the information. I love that idea of where you were just saying, allowing parents to take that information and do the searching themselves, not feeling like they have to have someone else doing it with them.
We leave stuff out from various peoples at conferences, back to school conferences, and lay them out, and they can take them and do whatever they want.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, there's a Karen who just talked is in Cloquet. I think it's good to know that those of you who are talking here, we've got a mix of people who are in more rural areas in northern Minnesota. We've got, and people who are working here in the metro or suburban area, and some of the outreach or a town like Cloquet, which is close to Fond du Lac, but not actually next to the reservation. So
good. I'm glad we have people from
ideas in different places.
Yeah.
A while back, and I know I'm not moderating this, but Sandra had a comment about how will this help children who are not in the EC, or they're not in special ed for early childhood, and that they have ACEs or they have trauma. I think that's a huge thing in terms of finding the right resources and family support for that. Yeah. So
thanks, Govinda. That leads really well into, let's go ahead and take a look at the Tribal and American Indian Families section in a minute. So when you get onto the main site, I don't know if this is blocking your view. Let me move that. We have, we've renamed it a little bit, but let me pull up. This is what the Tribal and American Indian Families, we call it a section or a tile is what we're calling them all. There's, I believe 10 right now. And we're actually gonna also be adding a peacetime emergency resources now that we've had this unprecedented situation with COVID happen. So this is what the section itself looks like on the homepage. So add comments in about icon, about photo. Right now we changed it from this because like what's currently on here, because we felt like some families are not growing families, they're where they want to be. So we're trying to kind of look at other wording. Currently right now, the section is called Tribal and American Indian Families. And the description underneath is resources and supports for American Indian children and families. So it's important for you to know too, through the community outreach that we've done, we specifically have had both individual interviews with people who are willing from the communities, and also I included, we sent out a survey as far and wide as we could. I don't know if any of you on the call were a part of that or were able to do that. If you were, feel free to give your feedback. Was anyone on the call either did the individual interview or did the survey? Maybe not.
I think at the time it was called, was that the Kinship Navigator?
Oh, it might have been, or expanded Help Me Grow. Were you part of it way at the beginning, Govinda?
I'm wondering if there was something about caregivers with Kinship Navigator and those resources.
Yeah.
But it wasn't called Help Me Grow at that time. If there was a different survey involved with that or not, I don't know.
That could have been pre my time. I've been working on this within the last year. So was it prior to that? Or more recent? There may be a different project too.
The Department of Human Services was working with that in terms of caregivers.
Okay.
So I don't know if this is connected or not, but
yeah, not directly. Thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, yep, it would have been slightly different. So we really specifically asked things like, is the picture appropriate? Is it as inclusive as possible? Is it Minnesota specific? We really specifically asked for feedback on the icon, wanting to make sure that it was, we know that every tribal nation has different traditions, and every family within every nation and every person within every nation has different traditions. And so really trying to figure out how to make this sort of, for lack of a better word, snapshot representation feel good to people. So any comments, if there are any comments just on the look of the section or the tile, please feel free to either put into the comment box or unmute yourself a minute before we move forward.
Koya is asking if she can share her cup of the 4 directions. It will give you a visual. I don't know, do you want to, you'd have to stop sharing your screen and let her share. Koya, do you know how to share your screen? So
you should be able to, along the bottom, there's like a green box with an arrow in it.
Or
I'll just put it on video. I'll just turn on my video and you can see me with my cup. But this is the 4 directions. So just be a second.
Okay. Thanks for sharing.
Sorry. Yeah. Just because I looked at the configuration of what you have versus what I have.
Okay, that's good.
Whoops, here you go.
Can you send that to me?
Yeah, I can do a picture and send it. So,
Yeah.
but this is how it is. I like it.
That's
So,
really cool.
anyway, that's just sharing. Thank you.
okay.
Yeah, thank you. And one of the things that we've talked about in feedback that we've gotten is like maybe having the tribal section have even just like a background that's different, that involves like I'm looking, you know, at your mug, like would there be a way to have that be sort of in the background so that there's not only different like resources that are specific, but that when you click onto the page that it actually is representative of American Indian families in a different way. I don't know if that's making sense. Is that making sense to anyone? Any ideas behind that? Like a watermark kind of, or something that's denoting that it's, I don't know. Is that making sense? Any feedback? Yeah, yep. It looks like great, good. Yeah, keep those comments coming, please. Perfect.
It says, yeah, use native artists, and there are, actually, I just had a thought, no, I'm blanking out on the name. Is it I wonder if Kalina from Grand Rapids suggested Heartberry, and I wonder if that's the person I'm thinking of, who does really nice like patterns of fruits and flowers that kind of look like traditional beading.
Sarah House. She's from Fond du Lac.
Oh, okay, yes, that's what I'm.
It would be an excellent choice for that, and does, you know, custom work.
Could you put her name into the chat box for me?
And I'm not sure. So Kalina suggested Heartberry, and I know I've heard of that person too, and I can't picture that right now.
Thank you. These are wonderful ideas. This is, I can't even tell you guys how excited I was for today.
Yeah.
The whole team was like, have you done the presentation yet? We're so excited for information.
There's a comment from Lisa, who works in St. Francis. She says, I really like the picture of the family.
Yeah,
I do too.
good. I'm so glad.
I think what happened to this wheel here is that it got kind of colonized a little
Yeah.
bit, because like north, that color white is for our north, and so it kind of did that compass approach that north has to be up, and
Yeah, yeah.
that's what happened there. Maybe that's my guess.
Well, it's, yeah, and I'm not sure. This would be like, you know, the data people trying their best to do things the way they were trying, you know, hoping to have things be right. But it's a good example where, like, so the icon, sometimes we also had to work within what we could find. There's only so many photos that we're able to purchase or icons we're able to use. And so that's another reason for thinking about a watermark, I think, in the background, so that if the icon itself has to be more simplistic, that we're able to still be incorporating those pieces throughout the website itself. Yeah.
Colina put up the website for Heartberry, and I just opened it on my screen, and I realized, so Sarah House is the artist who has Heartberry, and as I said, a couple people suggested an artist named Marlena Miles, but yeah, I don't know if I need to share them now, but
How about if we come back to it if we have time, for sure.
yeah, if you have time, or it'd be worth you looking at. So
Yes.
the site is here.
For sure. And I want you all to know everything that the ideas you're sharing today, I'm taking back to our team so that we can talk about them with the planning team and the database team and everyone who's working on the building of Help Me Connect right now. So.
And I would say, I see a suggestion from Colleen in Grand Rapids. It'd be awesome to include some reference to the 7 grandfather teachings.
Great, great. Yeah, that was something else someone had suggested, is maybe having well, let me show you the next page. So, and having other additional information on the page besides just the list of resources, basically. And that would be a good example of something that would be, I think, really important to find a way to include. So if you, when on the website, when you're able to get on, you'll click on it, and what will pop up next is, and hopefully you can see this all, it's one long list. I had to divide it into 2 to fit it on the slide, but these are the current categories of resources that we have right now. This is what I also need your feedback on is, do you feel like these categories, first of all, are they named in a way that's comfortable? Second, are they Are they meeting needs of tribal families? Or what categories are missing? One thing I thought about is we have tribal Head Start, but we don't have tribal early Head Start listed. So including early Head Start, for example, or right now we have, PACER's American Indian Parent Network listed. The people who run PACER are not Native. What Native parent networks or groups or resources are there out there we could be including? So kind of just take a look. What happens when you click on one of these is it would take you to a page that looks like this. Let's see if I can make this. Oh, I can't make it bigger. I hope you can see that okay. Where it'll list all the resources that pop up underneath that heading, that category heading. And then people can go in and search based on location, based on a specific search word. There's a couple different ways you can be searching, but this is what the next page would look like. And then if you clicked on one of these particular resources, so the example I gave was if we clicked on on MNTREC, then the resource page itself pops up that has some detail information. Sometimes it might have fee information if a place has a fee program or an application so that, a family could go directly through that way to apply. Website information, phone numbers, population served, area served. So every resource in the Help Me Connect Navigator has a particular page like this. Very general information. Because it had to be in order to create something that we could use quickly. But that's sort of the process of how you go from the main page through to the resources. So let's go back to this list. Let's talk about, is it easier for people to see it typed this way or to see the actual slide?
Well, I posed a question in the chat. Well, before I say this, I would say, Inger, if we have time before we finish, I don't want to lose track. Inger posted that she has some suggestions around ACEs training. So I don't want to lose
Yes. Yeah, I didn't really come back to that, but I should really quickly say that that's one reason why we're making Help Me Connect, because we know that not every child is going to be served through early childhood special education. So there are a lot of resources on Help Me Connect that will help support when children are showing on ACEs that they have needs based on trauma and historical trauma. But once again, wanting to make sure that we have enough. So
the question I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Inger.
Thank you. I was just wanting to throw out the idea of collaboration in the sense of, even if the ACEs presentation, they included this resource, I guess is what I'm thinking of, the reverse of, okay, let's say people are hearing about this. What are they going to do about, knowing that they've gone through this, and now, it probably has so much effect on their child when they realize that 3 generations it can get passed down, the trauma. And so then they realize that it's not so much that they've done something as it is they're dealing with things that are generationally passed down. So just giving that an opportunity to be circulated and connecting and letting them kind of use this as a resource to start normalizing this is part of what I'm trying to, and I'm trying to still brainstorm about the referral word, because I think that's spot on, that we don't use referral in order to normalize this, to help people feel more comfortable with it. So great information. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Inger, for that.
So the question I had thrown out, and there are a couple of responses, is does using the word tribal imply that this is only for enrolled members?
Yeah.
And both Colleen and Colina have comments in the chat. Colina from Northland says that they are using Indigenous education and have good feedback on that from parents. Jamie said their parents like Indigenous as well. So that was something I thought of, just, you know, in terms of the labeling.
Good. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Some people are enrolled, some people identify but aren't.
Yeah, we really struggled with that. And I think terminology, that's something I myself personally am still learning too in Minnesota. And so any ideas with that would be welcome. Very, very welcome.
Yeah, does anyone who's posted in the chat want to unmute and say something about?
Keep in mind too, so when you kind of think through the 2 phases, even we want to make sure that we have something ready to go to start supporting providers and families when we do that launch in the fall. But knowing that we have continued ability to continue adding resources, continue adding categories, continue tweaking words and using different terms. That's going to be ongoing. But one anxiety I have is, you know, when we're launching in the fall for the whole site, I don't want us to be missing things that are needed right now, right away, if that makes sense. And I'm not convinced that the current category list we have that you can see right now on the screen is enough.
So you're asking both about the types or the categories of help, and I was zeroing in more specifically on the name, and at least the people chiming in here seem to like Indigenous, and so I mean I think it's worth considering. Is that like a word change that can be made now before the fall? Does everyone agree on that? And then you also want to know, it's like you've got links to health services, schools, Head Start, behavior services, family home visiting, all of these different categories. So you want to know, are these the right categories? Should there be other categories of
yeah, and some of the categories have, you know, 100 resources will pop up. You know, for Tribal Head Start, all of the Tribal Head Starts across the state will pop up when you click on that. Some of them are only going to have a couple. And so how can we add additional resources into those that, you know, maybe need more?
And 2 things that come to my mind would be a link, like if parents want to do some teaching Indigenous language support. Or children's books.
That's great.
They're all kind of links to if you have a problem.
Right, kind of like, Govinda, were you saying that earlier? Sandra, I think, was saying that earlier. It's hard because, yeah, it's a hard balance to have things be like, oh, there's already an issue. What resource do we have for it versus proactive resources? And so anything proactive too that feels like it's missing, let us know, put it in the box. Yeah.
Years ago, I have a copy because I'm old. The Indian Education Office, maybe someone else remembers this, the Indian Education Office at MDE used to do something that was called Positive Indian Parenting. It was a training they went out and did with parents. And I still have a copy of that curriculum. But, you know, it was proactive. It wasn't like, oh, you're doing something wrong. It was tips for how to be a good parent in an Indigenous way. There's another urban institutions, urban tribal offices. Luana, you just wrote, we have it too. You have what?
Indian parenting.
Oh, you have the Positive Indian Parenting. Do you still use it?
Any like direct website links you can put in the box, do that as well. The data team, it's easiest for them to add new data if they have a data source that they can add into the database, if that makes sense. Or just like say, hey, Kat, give me a call or contact me and we can touch base later.
when we get to go back in the building, I will find my copy of Positive Indian Parenting. I mean, it's a paper.
Love to see that.
I mean, I have to.
I have to go, but I do want to say that there should be consideration, like some people are putting in the chat box, on the urban institutions and Indian centers, because, you know, many of these are the tribal services that maybe if you're closer to the reservation, or if you're living on the reservation, and there's many of us that either live in other communities, urban communities, city communities, and it's harder to find those resources.
Okay.
Or if you're living farther away from your community, what could you tap into?
Okay.
So that's I have to go.
It's okay. Keep ideas flowing to me, Govinda, as you can. Thanks for attending today. Yeah, and I know we're we have about 5 minutes, so furiously type into the chat box, but feel free to also unmute yourself, anyone who wants to add out loud. I cannot thank you enough for all of this. It's so meaningful. Thank you.
Yeah, so we'll be able to save all of the chat here, so Kat can capture. I just opened up the Strong Hearts helpline that Paulina suggested.
Yeah, right now I can't see the chat box, so.
Yeah, okay. So then, like, another person, I mentioned language, and someone else, Colleen, who's in Grand Rapids, and language groups, and
Perfect.
something that's really positive and proactive of wanting to introduce the language. And there are online resources and books and things of teaching the language.
One specific question I have that you can put a yes or a no or comments in would be if we were going to say, you know, we're planning to make as many changes as we possibly can before fall, as many of the comments you're sending in as possible, knowing that there might be some like technical things that make some of them difficult to include right now, but that we would pull into that phase 2 process. Do you feel that it's better to still have the Tribal and American Indian Families section, you know, be part of the phase 1 launch in the fall, even if it's not completely built out the way that we know it needs to be? Or is it better to just have some minimal resources like we have right now, launch that, knowing that we're still building out in phase 2 more? Does that make sense? Is it better to have it not fully complete and still launch, or better to not have it until we know we're ready to launch the full section? Does that make sense?
Could wait to launch myself.
Oh yeah, someone who unmuted, go ahead.
Oh, it's Karen. I just said I would rather it be fully ready to go than to have bits and pieces here and there.
Okay.
In my
Other thoughts or input? Thanks, Karen.
I think that's a good question. I think it's always nice to have resources with the preface that, but this is an ongoing and we're always adding. But I also see the point too, whereas if you feel like something is ready and it has all the information, then just implement it then. So for lack of a good answer, I'm a little wishy-washy.
It's okay. Thank you.
And this is Colleen from Grand Rapids. I would like to see like as much as you can get out there so that people see that things are included. And then maybe have something where people can enter in their information for things that they have going around in their communities or that are available around the state that maybe only the small community knows about.
That they could do with it like on the site itself.
Well, they could like send it to someone,
yeah,
you know, and then it can be added.
That's great. We are building that ability into the website, but it would be good to specifically have that on this section yeah, I think that's great, where it's maybe more highlighted on this page.
Yeah, hey Kat.
Hey Guthrie.
Hey, good morning.
Morning.
Appreciate you bringing this to everyone. I agree with Colleen. I was just going to suggest something very similar, an input section where, you know, what's missing. I think one of the issues that we run into within some of the equity-based work that we do is we say we have to have it perfect first before we can move forward with it. And so as we're striving for perfection, we miss opportunities. And so I think having a nice, well-rounded website that is incomplete, but as complete as we can get it up now makes sense, with the opportunity to continue to accept input from folks that are accessing it. What else do we need? Is it language revitalization resources? Is it connection? You know, if you're in an urban area and you're not necessarily from that area, how do we then connect with others, right? Like some of those ideas can continue to come in somehow.
Yeah, because I do worry about holding on this section, launching the rest of the site, and then families feeling like, hey, where's our help? Where's our support? And if there's a way to combine them by, you know, having it as robust as possible. But then I love that idea of having a specific way within the section to, in the moment, be giving that feedback of like, oh, hey, here's a parent organization that we have in our community, or here's a new resource that's popped up that, you know, for our urban families that they could tap into. Yeah. I love that idea of just kind of both and. Yeah. One other thing I do need to say since we're recording today is that for people who watch this later, definitely keep sending me your information, knowing that at some point we will have to stop what we're adding into the build out now for phase 1, but that everything that doesn't get into phase 1, we'll be trying to build into the phase 2. So just wanted to put that out for people who might be watching this, you know, a couple weeks down the road or a month down the road.
Kat, do you want to forward to the slide that has your contact?
Ooh, yes, thank you. Yes, so here is my email directly and my phone number. We also do have a Help Me Connect email. It's new and it hasn't really caught on yet, but feel free to use this. I do check it daily. So you can send ideas and thoughts either place for both those of you who are on the webinar today and also people who watch this recorded later. Please continue sending your ideas and thoughts, and know that we will be looking at every single one and trying to pull in as much as we can right now, and then continuing that build out moving forward.
I think, and so although, you know, this was a small group and, you know, people who participated on Tuesday and had time to come back today, but if you know other people, please, you know, when we send out the recording, please forward it to them, or, you know, people that have a special interest in early childhood.
Yeah.
I also wanted to explain this Zoom channel is going to be used for another meeting at 1. That's one reason we can't
end
going here.
Yeah. Thank you to everyone for all of your input and your honesty today. If you have ideas, first of all, if you would be willing to be part of more of these conversations prior to us launching the site, please let me know. Either email me at my email or at the state or the Help Me Connect email. So that I can reach out to you individually if you'd be willing to be part of some more of our community outreach moving forward. And also if you have ideas of how to involve families in a way that they would feel trust and comfortable sharing, please send those ideas to me as well. You know, one of the things being in Birth to 3 that's so important to me is families. It's not just the kids, it's the families that are surrounding them, and really wanting direct family input. I heard that from some of you today too, that would be critical. So ideas on how to do that would be wonderful. Any other final thoughts? Or I know we're at our time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, okay, I'm going to stop the recording.
We'll leave the chat for just another second.
Right, yes, yeah, we'll leave the chat open for a couple more minutes. As I said, the channel will be used at 1. So